So for years now, we have been obsessed with calcium, and for good reason. Calcium is probably the single most important nutrient that you guys need to be focused on when you're trying to understand what your deficiencies are in your garden. So in soil terms, there is a golden ratio that we look for, and that is a relationship between the three main cations, the positively charged ions that are doing the most work for your plants, and that is calcium, magnesium, and potassium. So the golden ratio is a 6:1 ratio. So 60% calcium, 10% magnesium, 10% potassium. The main reason why we want to highlight calcium as the first place for you to start if you are struggling with some deficiencies in your plants is this. Calcium is tied to so many of the functions for plant growth. It is a cell wall builder in the same way that calcium for humans is responsible for building bones and structural components. That's the same role that calcium plays in plants. The other main role that calcium plays for plants is in the regulation of temperature. When you're cultivating indoors and you're going through a fairly intense growth phase with your plants, trying to maximize PPFD, trying to run your plants at that red line to get them to perform at their absolute highest, they are under a fairly constant temperature stress load. So they are processing calcium at a high level when you're dealing with indoor cultivation. Calcium helps to regulate the opening and closing of stomata. When you are deficient in calcium, you'll start to see this spotting, this yellow spotting on the leaves, and that's essentially the plants breaking down tissue because they're not able to regulate with enough calcium. So a very common deficiency that is throughout most of our years of doing this that we continue to battle with is a calcium deficiency. There's almost no way that you can have too much calcium in your soil. So it's not one of those inputs where you have to really guard against an excess. There are certain inputs that I would put in that category. We'll talk about those in a different episode. But don't be afraid to really bring more calcium to the party. Having said that, it's essential that as you are adding calcium to your regimen, that you continue to run soil reports. Growing in soil requires a regular check on levels. You can't continue to add inputs. You can't continue to bring elements to the party without actually checking yourself, and a soil report is what does that. And what we geek out on here is our soil reports that we get from Logan Labs. We love Logan Labs, shout out Logan Labs. And I'm super old school and brick and mortar. I need information on paper. It's hard for me to process information when it's just digital. So we print out our saturated paste reports. The saturated paste tells us what is actually bioavailable to our plants. Logan Labs does a great job on that. And what we key in on are these three cations, the calcium, the potassium, and the magnesium. And we're looking for that ratio. And what you're looking at here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 soil reports. And we've been tracking our calcium levels now for quite some time. And we have been using two main products to continue to drive calcium in our cultivation. The first product that I want to highlight that is unbelievably versatile and effective on a bunch of different levels is Microna lime. So calcium carbonate is the form of calcium found in Microna lime, and it's 95% calcium carbonate. It's a very pure product. And as you can see here on the bag, it says solution grade. And the thing that is clutch about solution grade calcium, at the risk of stating the obvious, is that you can put it in solution. So we can fertigate with this. We can put it right in our reservoirs, drop it into our deployments. We can also put it into our foliar feeding regimen, which we do. And we have been foliar feeding with calcium, and we have been amending our soil with this. So Microna lime is our solution for 2 levels. First, dry amending the pile. Second, using it in solution. Phenomenal product. The second product that we are a huge fan of is a product developed by Nectar for the Gods, which is a local Oregon company. Love Nectar for the Gods. This is called Demeter's Destiny. All their products are named after Greek gods. Pretty cool. So Demeter's Destiny is a calcium phosphate. So they have bound the calcium to phosphorus as opposed to the Microna lime, which is a calcium carbonate bound to carbon and oxygen. So the cool thing about the Demeter's Destiny with the calcium phosphate is 2 things. First of all, it is an immediately bioavailable calcium that we can drop right into our reservoir and we can deploy into the garden if we feel like we just need more calcium, which most of the time we feel like we need more calcium. The second thing that it does is it brings a bit of phosphorus into the deployment, which again, in general, bringing a little bit more phosphorus to the party is always a good thing. So the calcium phosphate in the Demeter's lime, the calcium carbonate in the Microna lime helps immensely. So today's PSA is calcium, 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 and when in doubt, start with your calcium levels. Check your calcium levels and then check that 6:1 ratio on those 3 important cations of calcium, magnesium, and potassium. If you get your ratio right and you get your calcium right, your plants are going to be happier. So remember, if you haven't actually checked out our online course, if you're looking for more information, make sure you click the link and check that out. And as always, let's cultivate.